Villains are no longer just fictional characters confined to the screen. They have become cultural icons, influencing everything from social attitudes to real-life behaviors. But what happens when admiration for fictional villains seeps into reality? How does the glorification of morally ambiguous or outright destructive figures shape our perceptions of power, justice, and ethics? In this section, we'll analyze the real-world consequences of villain worship, from shifts in media representation to the potential dangers of idolizing destructive personalities. Throughout history, society has admired figures who defy the status quo: rebels, revolutionaries, and outcasts. Hollywood villains often embody these traits, which is why they captivate audiences. But there's a fine line between appreciating a well-crafted character and idolizing them to the point of justification. Take the Joker, for example. He is one of the most celebrated villains in modern media. His character represents chaos, rebellion, and anti-establishment sentiment. In The Dark Knight, 2008, Heath Ledger's Joker became a symbol of anarchy, resonating deeply with those who feel alienated by society. When Joker, 2019, starring Joaquin Phoenix, was released, it sparked heated debates about whether it glorified violent, anti-social behavior. Some fans began to see Joker not just as a fictional character but as a real-world inspiration, someone who exposed societal corruption. The concern wasn't just that audiences enjoyed the character, but that they started viewing his actions as justified. This trend extends beyond Joker. Characters like Tyler Durden from Fight Club and Patrick Bateman from American Psycho were meant to be critiques of toxic masculinity and consumerism, yet some audiences misunderstood them, embracing their ideologies instead of recognizing them as cautionary figures. Social media platforms are filled with posts that glorify these characters, with quotes and edits that strip away their destructive qualities and present them as aspirational figures. While most people understand the distinction between fiction and reality, there have been cases where villain admiration has influenced real-world behavior. For instance, some individuals who committed violent crimes claim to have been inspired by movies and TV shows. One of the most infamous examples is the 2012 Aurora, Colorado shooting, where the perpetrator dyed his hair orange and referred to himself as the Joker. While the connection between fictional villains and real-life violence is complex, since many factors contribute to criminal behavior, it does raise questions about the extent to which media shapes our worldview. Beyond extreme cases, villain worship subtly affects everyday behavior. The rise of the alpha male persona, often modeled after characters like Tony Montana, Scarface, or even crime bosses from The Sopranos, has led some individuals to adopt more aggressive, self-serving attitudes. In online spaces, figures who embody villainous traits, such as ruthlessness, dominance, and manipulation, are sometimes admired as symbols of strength and success. When power and control become aspirational, empathy and morality take a backseat. Villain worship extends beyond entertainment. It is bled into cultural and social norms. Today, qualities often associated with villains, manipulation, cunning, and lack of empathy, are sometimes celebrated in business, politics, and even social interactions. For instance, in corporate culture, the ruthless entrepreneur trope has become widely accepted. Figures like Jordan Belfort, the Wolf of Wall Street, are both admired and criticized for their aggressive, morally ambiguous rise to power. While ambition is not inherently negative, the glorification of unethical tactics, such as deception, exploitation, and unchecked greed, raises ethical concerns. Similarly, in online culture, figures who exhibit narcissistic or villainous traits often gain large followings. The rise of toxic social media influencers who embrace conflict, manipulation, and dominance as a brand identity reflects a shift in societal values. Many of these figures justify their behavior under the guise of being real or playing the game, but the underlying message is clear: morality is secondary to success. It's important to recognize that appreciating a well-written villain is not inherently problematic. Stories thrive on conflict, and villains are often the most complex and engaging characters. However, the danger arises when admiration turns into justification. When audiences begin to sympathize too deeply with villains, they may start excusing or rationalizing harmful behaviors. This is especially concerning when it comes to younger, impressionable audiences who may not have the critical thinking skills to separate fiction from reality. Take, for example, the rise of the Sigma male trend, a social media-driven subculture that glorifies traits like emotional detachment, hyper-independence, and lack of empathy. Many of these traits align with what psychology calls the dark triad personality traits: narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. While these traits can lead to success in some competitive environments, they also correlate with exploitative and unethical behavior. The question then becomes, is society shifting toward an acceptance of villain-like behavior as a survival strategy? As we look to the future of storytelling, it's clear that villains and anti-heroes are not going away. If anything, they are becoming more central to modern narratives. Audiences crave complexity, and simplistic good versus evil stories no longer hold the same appeal. But with this shift, new ethical questions arise. Are we blurring the lines between entertainment and ideology? Will future generations be more accepting of moral ambiguity, or will we see a backlash against villain worship? One possible outcome is that storytelling will evolve to focus on redemption arcs, showing that while villains are compelling, the true challenge lies in transformation. Stories that explore consequences, accountability, and moral dilemmas could offer a new layer of depth to villain-driven narratives. So now, let's turn the conversation to you, our audience. Why do you think we're so drawn to villains? Do you believe villain worship has real consequences, or is it just entertainment? Let us know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more in-depth analysis of media, psychology, and culture.